welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 21st, 2019. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I'm literally chilling. I left home today and forgot to turn on the heat, and I got back and it was quite chilly. But I'm going to warm up tonight because we got another night of NFL football.
Another night of NFL football. Every time I think about being chilly, I want some chili beans, Big C. One of my favorite scenes was Blazing Saddles. They love chili beans, too. I know that might be one of your favorite movies. It's all fair in love and war. So much going on in sports. Good old boys. Football is amazing. And just seeing how amazing it is, you can go to other countries and they still sell out. It's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe, especially all the people going through stuff in this great country. Where there's impeachments, where there's who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to be the top 4 in college football. There's still people that need help. We have a salute to our veterans. We do it every show, called the National Suicide Hotline for military veterans as well as civilians. 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255, 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's important to every American, I would like to believe. As we sit up and we watch these impeachment hearings that are going on the news all day long across America, the thing that I take from that the most, Charlton, is the people who have served our country honorably being torn apart by the other parties in these proceedings, Charlton, that go out and they've sacrificed their lives to service this country, to help keep this country safe, just like those veterans on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And to come back home after doing a service for this country, and to be labeled as a traitor, somebody who does not stand by this country, but yet you took an oath to protect this country's sovereignty.
Yeah.
And yet we have a political party trying to tear you down. This is the same thing that happens to veterans when they come back from war, Charlton, overseas, is that we have people that try to tear them down because they survived. And people turn their backs on them. They don't lend a hand to them. They don't think that this veteran hurts and is in need of comfort and just someone to communicate with.
Yeah.
And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there. Because after witnessing what goes on television in these Senate hearings, Charlton, to our personnel that have gone and served in foreign lands, Charlton, to help protect this country, to find out what foreign entities are trying to do to us, and have our own politicians throw them under the bus like they're a piece of trash, Charlton.
Yep.
This is what happens to too many veterans in America. And this 1-800-Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there for people to talk to. We see people on TV. We see them strong. But they also still need someone to talk to, Charlton, after going through this beratement and mistreatment that they have to deal with.
Yep.
Imagine what the people who have less clout, Charlton, coming back, who are not walking in high political positions, and what they go through, the devastation treatment that they go through, Charlton, being undermined in our society.
Yeah.
The Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there to help. And we need to give it out, not just us, but every American needs to give it out every day.
800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. Coming up on the holidays, I know there are a lot of people getting ready for shopping, like go shopping, like go shopping like shopping for stuff. And it's always, how much stuff do we really need? And I wonder if people still, and I'm not an ogre, I love the holidays too when people are a little bit nicer, especially with a certain kind of eggnog, they're nicer, Big C. But when you think about it, we spend so much time on our gluttony for toys and gifts and presents, and oftentimes we don't realize that a lot of the reason we have this freedom to go be gluttonous and overconsume is because people did sacrifice. If they didn't sacrifice their lives, Big C, they sacrificed a lot of time their mental health. I really love giving up that hotline. I also want to say tonight is Thursday. I was kind of confused because I was seeing some college football games that played on Tuesday also, Big C. But I know it's a great time of year. People come together to cheer on their favorite sports teams. And before we even get into tonight's game, I was just thinking back to the game down in Mexico where the Chargers were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, LA Chargers. And I just wanted to know, football has come under such of a fight argument. We know football used to be very segregated. They started integrating football right around the 60s, Big C. And then we heard most recently about the CTE issues, and even Will Smith made a movie about it. Dr. Ben Omalo also made a movie about that. A lot of parents are saying they don't want their kids playing football anymore because they say it's too dangerous. Well, driving a car is more dangerous than playing football, and I don't know any parents that don't want their kids to drive cars. But where could you go in another country where 80,000 people that normally will show up to watch soccer will show up to watch football, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, football resonates around the world. The NFL has done a marvelous job of marketing its product worldwide to men, women, children. And so when you come there, and especially when you go to a foreign country, Charlton, you're not going to get an everyday game. And so perhaps that will really escalate you having sellouts every time you do that.
Yeah, and so I just appreciate the fact, soccer really, I keep hearing, is the most popular sport in the world. All you need is, you really don't even need shoes. I know some guys that play soccer barefoot, Big C. Football, you need uniforms. Even though a lot of guys, when I was growing up, they would just find a football and we mark the goalpost, was usually that brick wall. It was a goalpost, Big C. And a lot of guys just had a lot of fun. Soccer, you don't have to have money. You don't have to go to some special country club. It's a game that's played in the most poorest of nations, in the more wealthiest of nations. And I think it's really going to set on, even though football's popular, I can see maybe in the next 40 years that soccer might take over. Big C, your thoughts in the USA?
Well, soccer is a universal game, Charlton, and it's played throughout the world everywhere. When you talk about third world countries,
yep,
they play soccer. You don't need all the extra equipment to play soccer. You need a ball and a couple feet to go out there and play the game, Charlton. But as you think about the game that was just played in Mexico City, if you had a soccer game in that Azteca Stadium, you'd have 103,000 people in there. So even the NFL doesn't match the gravity of soccer in Mexico. And when you think about even the teams that are in the U.S., in the MSL soccer league now that they have, those teams sell out on a regular basis. I think the team in Atlanta led the team in attendance the last 3 years, and they average 65,000 people a game. A lot of NFL teams, the Oakland Raiders, don't average that many people a game.
Yeah, they can't even hold that many people. Even up in Northern California, you could call it wine country, the state capital of Sacramento. They just got awarded a professional soccer team also. We know they have them in Seattle and over in San Jose on the West Coast, 2 down in L.A. And then it's just a matter of time where it grows. And so I just appreciate that sports can bring people together. I do want to get on tonight's game, and I'll even start it by just not being, obtuse. This thing about Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph, was the N-word used and trying to get his appeal reduced? I don't know. And even if it was used, Big C, that's no excuse for what happened. That's just my opinion. I want to get your thoughts. Sticks and stones break my bones, but your words never hurt me. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, on a football field, Charlton, all type of epithets always have come out. I said things during games that my teammates would apologize for me during the game, and I still feel bad about some of the stuff I said decades ago to players on the field, Charlton, but that's the game. I even had a coach go to the racial epithets on me, dropping the F-bomb and dropping the N-word right there on the sideline, And I'm looking at the players on the opposing team. So if he says that about me, what does he think about you? So that's always been part of sports. I don't care whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey, Charlton, tennis. Epithets come out all the time. Yeah. It's the game. It's intensity.
Well, Mike Tyson, I remember saying he was going to eat somebody's kids. Now, that's called cannibalism, Big C. Nobody wants their kids to be eaten. A little word, bad word, don't hurt me every now and then. I remember one time I was in elementary school. I'll never forget this. I said a bad word, and I didn't mean to say a bad word, but somebody called me a bad word, so I called them back. I remember having to have my mouth washed out with soap. I'll never forget that. It was a white kid, and he called me the N-word. And I called him. I said his mama was the N-word, right? Because I know all life came from Africa, Big C. And the teacher made me wash my mouth out with soap. I felt offended, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I would have used the whole case of soap with a lot of the things that I've said over time. But, I mean, as everybody in the media is trying to judge athletes during the heat of competition, Charlton, I mean, you can't step into that area unless you want to put on a uniform.
Oh, man, I heard, I'm assuming it was a husband and wife that were going at each other using all kind of blippity blips and blankety blank, and you blankety blank this and you blippity blip that. And then I guess they got separated for a while and got back together again. It's all fair in love and war. I do want to talk about this reunification of these two teams that are competing for their championship. And that's Thursday Night Football. The preview, the Indianapolis Colts, they're 6-4 on the season. They're playing down in Houston. They're out of the North, but I never understood why they're in the North, Big C. But they're playing down in the South, in the NFC South at the Houston Texans. Also 6-4. So based on my math, something's got to give. I hope we don't have a tie. It's 8:20 kickoff East Coast time, so it's already underway. It's on Fox Sports and also NFL Network. The Texans are favored by 3.5. It cannot be that same Texan team that showed up in Baltimore and got whipped. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of fours involved in this game, Charlton. When you think about Jacoby Brissett, he's won his last 4 starts against the Texans. He's coming off a hard-fought win last week in Jacksonville, coming back off a knee injury. T.Y. Hilton loves to play against the Houston Texans as a receiver.
Yep.
He's had just under 1,000 yards receiving against the Texans in his career. They're going to be without Marlon Mack in the backfield tonight, their leading rusher, so they're going to have to pick that up. But Deshaun Watson is going to need some help from his Houston Texans teammates.
Yeah.
In his last 4 games against the Indianapolis Colts, he's been sacked 18 times.
Yeah.
So he's hit the ground frequently, Charlton. His team is just not protected. He was sacked 4 times last week against the Baltimore Ravens. So he's had a tough time staying on his feet. We know when he wants to be Superman that he can rise up and perform at any time. But he's really going to have a lot of help from his teammates tonight. He's going to have to incorporate his wide receivers. He can't hold the ball extensively trying to elongate plays. He's going to have to get the ball out of his hand much quicker tonight.
I don't know how often Dan Pastorini was sacked down there in that in the dome down there in Houston, but I know it was David Carr that was drafted out of Fresno State. Derek Carr is a bigger brother. When he was playing for Houston, of course, different team, different staff, etc. He was one of the most sacked players in football also, and he was the opposite of what Watson is. Watson's a run-pass option. Carr was mostly a drop-back and pass option. So they've always had an issue with that offensive line, Big C. And even back in the day when Bum Phillips was coaching, they were never good enough to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a team tonight, Charlton, that they lost to Indianapolis earlier in the season. When you think about Houston's defense, they're without their 2 top pass rushers from last year, J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, who is now in Seattle.
Yeah.
And so they have to find a way to get more consistent pressure on Jacoby Brissett. Whitney Merciless, their top pass rusher, Charlton, he's going to have to find a way to get in that backfield tonight against the Colts.
You know what's interesting about this game tonight? If Luck did not retire, Andrew Luck, the great Andrew Luck, if he did not retire, we would not see how good Jacoby Brissett is as a quarterback. He's won his last 4 games, and I won't say he's going to play the best football tonight between these 2 quarterbacks because I think Watson's a better quarterback overall. But look at the talent. When we talk about guys in this league that can't get work or they're backup guys and for whatever reason, this is an African-American quarterback that is so talented his team has a chance to make the playoffs, even win this division, and he would not have even been on the field had Andrew Luck not retired. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he had his opportunity when he came into the NFL. He was drafted by the New England Patriots. He started a couple games for the Patriots, won those games, and that's what facilitated his trade to Indianapolis when Andrew Luck had gone down a couple years ago, Charlton, and he showed that he was an NFL caliber quarterback. All the scouts were very high on him coming out of North Carolina State. And so the New England Patriots took him with a third-round draft pick 4 years ago. And it's proved out. There's some value in him. He's come to Indianapolis. When you get an opportunity as the next man up in the NFL, you always want to seize on your opportunity. And Jacoby Brissett has made the best of that. The Indianapolis coach, when Andrew Luck retired, gave Jacoby Brissett a brand-new contract at the beginning of the season.
Yep, that's true. So it's about winning. And we just wish both teams the best. I love quarterbacks that have a chance to give you some yardage on the ground as well as through the air, so we'll see what happens tonight. I want to take a look at Big C's top 10 quarterback rankings coming up this week, Big C. And I can just start with number 10, Matt Ryan, Atlanta Falcons. People say, Matt Ryan, why? They've only won a couple of games. But the Falcons are actually surging. They've won 2 straight games, and that's mostly due to the defense. But Ryan, when you think about it, he continues to play pretty good football, and he's been the league's 9th best quarterback overall this year by his QBR rating. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Matt Ryan, year in, year out, is always in the top of the league, passing statistics-wise, Charlton. And he has great receiver in Julio Jones. He lost his tight end, Hooper, last week. But, when Matt Ryan is throwing, the Falcons always have an opportunity.
Yeah, they really do. And I want to see him do well. I know he's overpaid, just my opinion. But he's got the money. He's not going to turn it back. No one would turn down $155 million. Big C's number 9 pick, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Discount Double Check Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. Think about Rodgers. I still remember Brett Favre. And when Brett Favre was asked to leave, it's because Rodgers was ready. And you had to lose one of them. Brett was still good enough to go on and make the playoffs with the Minnesota Vikings. But Rodgers learned because he was a little bit patient, waiting to learn like Brett Favre did. And they talk about Rodgers being able to improvise. But he learned from Brett Favre, who was great at improvisation, Big C. So I want to just get thoughts on the great Green Bay Packers and Rodgers. And think about this. He's been good but not great by his standards. In his 15th total QBR, we keep waiting for the breakout to come. Matt LaFleur's offense really hasn't happened yet. But talk about one of the greatest stages. We'll be seeing it this Sunday night on the West Coast in San Francisco when they play the 49ers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you look at Aaron Rodgers and the way he has the Green Bay Packers at 8-2 on the season, Charlton, under a new offensive regime with Matt LaFleur, he's really developed. He has 2 new wide receivers that he's had to get used to as the season goes on because Devontae Adams was down early. And Aaron Jones has taken over some of the workload in the backfield at the running back position. But Aaron Rodgers has led his team to the top position in the NFC North.
Yeah, and I know he has only been to 1 Super Bowl, you would expect, because he is a prodigal son for media. And I liked him coming out of Cal Berkeley. He actually went to a junior college up in Northern California. I think it was Butte College or somewhere up north. Could have been the Feather River area. But he's a California kid, and I wish him the best. And I want to go down to the desert on the West Coast, Big C, for number 8 Big C's thoughts for the top quarterbacks this week. Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is a kid that was drafted also by the Oakland A's, so he loves the West Coast. Out of Allen High School in Texas, Big C won a state championship in Texas. Went to play for the Oklahoma Sooners, and they won Big 12 titles. They were also in the Final Four in football. Think about what's happened to this kid. Is he too big? Is he too small? Can he run? Can he pass? Well, Murray's landed on his feet nicely these days. And think about what he's done. They've lost to the 49ers twice in the last 3 weeks. But in that time, Murray posted a passer rating above 100, even against that great 49ers defense. In the past 7 games, he's averaging 7.3 yards per attempt. He's thrown 10 touchdowns and only 1 interception, which is a better stat than Jimmy Garoppolo in the same division. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Kyler Murray is slowly developing down in the desert, Charlton. It'd be nice to get him some more line help offensively and defensively. But he has showed that he understands this game. Cliff Kingsbury is also making adjustments as the head coach but it looks to be a bright future ahead for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and I just wish him great. He has so much panache, so much style, so much poise in the pocket. He's not jittery feet, and I know people were saying when they had a preseason game against the Raiders that maybe this guy's not ready, because they weren't ready. They have to figure out how to use him, and now they're using his strength. I really hope he has great success, Big C. Big C's thoughts, Big C's top 10 quarterbacks this week. Number 7, Deshaun Watson. We'll see tonight, Big C. Watson's had an awesome season. He submitted a stinker last week against the Ravens on Sunday, getting picked off, and I guess he was picked off once. He fumbled once. He was sacked an amazing 6 times. A lot of that because he's trying to create more plays. It was difficult to criticize Watson because he's trying to do too much. Without his improvisation, Big C, they may have lost a few more games on the season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but at quarterback stuff, it's time. You got to know when it's time to get rid of the ball. We saw that with Tua last week in Alabama when he dislocated his hip and got his nose broke because he wouldn't get rid of the ball, Charlton, and take the incompletion. This is what Deshaun Watson has to be more willing to do. Come back and play another down, and don't put your team in bad field position because this Indianapolis Colts team will get after him tonight.
Yeah, they will. I think he'll learn, especially being at home. That crowd might get the defense more riled up. They got to play better defense, Big C. Big C's thoughts on the top 10 quarterbacks coming into this week. Number 6, the great Drew Brees. Like the Bionic Man, they made him bigger, stronger, and faster. Remember that movie back in the day? I think it was Lee Majors. Well, he's like Lee Majors, the Bionic Man, Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints. And you think about his bounce back after a pretty rough outing against the Falcons. He completed 80% of his passes, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he looked like the $6 million man. Would that be an insult with today's money, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he looked like Drew Brees last week in that performance, Charlton. You can't keep a good man down. And Drew had an off game against the Falcons 2 weeks ago, but he proved his mettle last week, stepping back into the limelight with his 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, I really want to see him do well, even though Bridgewater, just like Discount Double Check, he's waiting his time. I don't think they're going to have both quarterbacks on that roster next year, so we'll just see what happens with that. Big C's top 10 quarterbacks coming up to week number 5. Your cousin, Big C, Kirk Cousins, Minnesota Vikings, after leading the Vikings out to 20, they were down 20-0 to the great John Elway and the Denver Broncos. And think about Elway. He has not lived up to this. Let's get John Elway. He knows how to build a team. When Peyton Manning retired, I think a lot of those dreams left too. But you think about the Broncos defense. They were ranked 6th at that time against Cousins, and he deserves to move up to number 5. Do you like that? You like that? Yeah, we like it this time. But you think about it. This man has gone under a lot of scrutiny. He's been told he can't win the big game. A lot of his receivers told him the truth, which a lot of people don't want to hear nowadays. They got on him. And once he realized the truth, he realized he can look in the mirror, and now he's a better quarterback. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Vikings team is a better team, Charlton. This is the best team that Kirk Cousins has played on. And you have to have teammates call you out sometime. You're making a lot of money, but you're not making the big plays. He's found his open receivers down the field, Charlton. 3 touchdown passes in the last game, no turnovers. But still, once again, it was against a team with not a winning record.
Yeah, and when you think about Big C's top 10 quarterbacks coming up on this week, I think about number 4, and some people think maybe he's number 1. That's the great Patrick Mahomes. I remember just a couple of weeks ago when he was injured, I think his kneecap was dislocated, and they slid it back in place, and he set out and got some rehab. Whatever they did, they mended him back together again like Humpty Dumpty, Big C, and he's playing a lot better. Also like Lee Majors and the $6 million man, but they misplaced like a few $1 million, Big C. But Kansas City Chiefs, their win over the Chargers Monday night, it may have been his worst game. It may have been the worst game of his career, but it was still enough to win, and I like the way this guy can bounce back and win even when he has a bad performance, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, whenever you have Mr. Mahomes in the lineup, Charlton, you give yourself a chance to win. Hands down, to me, I know he's the best quarterback in the NFL. You can talk about the flash of Lamar Jackson and other players rising and falling, Charlton, but he's consistent across the board. Without Mr. Mahomes playing for the Chiefs, Charlton, they would probably be 2-8 right now.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is really, really bad. I don't think they're a playoff. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs because they're in the AFC West, but they'll probably get knocked out if they fix their defense, and I don't know if they can in this time, Big C. Big C's top 10 quarterbacks this week. Number 3, the great Russell Wilson. Should call him Russell Houdini Wilson. This guy gets out of everything, Big C. Seattle Seahawks. No movement for Wilson after the Seahawks bye. They had the chance to get rested up. Now they're making that push for the playoffs. It's not difficult to argue that the great Russell Wilson would be ranked first or second by how tightly the top 3 are clustered. I think one of his greater moments, of course, they should have run the ball with beast mode against New England in the Super Bowl. But to even get to that Super Bowl, he had almost a Hail Mary pass up in Seattle. I believe it was overtime against Green Bay, and that propelled him to the Super Bowl. He was spot on then, and he's doing the same thing now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Russell is truly a magician. I mean, there's a guy who outplays all of his criticism, Charlton. He's never the flash player. He's the consistent player. He's that quarterback who goes out there, who does not get flustered week in, week out. We've seen the exceptional play of Russell Wilson this year, leading the NFL with 25 touchdown passes, and Seattle with an 8-2 record.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on what he's done. I think he's about less than 6 feet tall. I know a lot of the NFLs, they'll lie and say a guy's 2 inches taller. Well, we know, and they'll say they're 20 pounds lighter depending on what position they play. But he really shows me that this thought, I mean, look at Phillip Rivers down in San Diego. I think he's about 6'3", 6'4", and let's say Russell Williams 5'11", 6 feet. There are always people saying the eyeball test. And I remember there were some commentators I heard talking about when Russell Wilson, his first week in Seattle, and someone told him this guy's going to be the starter. He's going to be the starter. In fact, he's going to be an all-pro player. He was that talented, Big C, and he has always backed it up. I just want to get your thoughts. Size doesn't matter when it comes to, can you play the game, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, I've liked Russell Wilson when he was at North Carolina State. I liked him when he transferred to Wisconsin. When he fell to the 3rd round in the NFL draft, I told everyone I knew he would be the best quarterback in that draft class. Yet he has proved me right, Charlton. You know, people gauge football players when they come to the NFL talking about height and stature.
Yeah.
But normally by the time that a player gets to the NFL level, he's been that height his entire career. It's not going to change. So if he had success at that height in college, there's no reason why he can't have the NFL.
And most quarterbacks, they don't throw the ball standing on their toes trying to get taller. They kind of crouch down a little bit to get more spin on the ball. I just think if you can play, you can play. Number 2, Big C's top 10 quarterbacks this week. Dak Prescott, the most, if you can say disrespect, I don't know if you can say disrespect, but he's the most maligned, most marginalized by his own owner and media. You know, Texas is tough on athletes, especially a lot of African Americans and talent. I don't know. I think he's the only star quarterback, African American, for the Dallas Cowboys at this level. They may have had another one or two, but this guy, never seen anything like it. But I don't take lightly that there's also social pressure, the same that Charlie Strong felt trying to coach down there in Texas. And Charlie Strong was fired. It was the same record that Harmon has right now. Just Google that if you don't believe it. Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys, deserves more MVP love. The reason why the Cowboys are 6-4, Big C, I truly believe, is because of his mobility. The top in the NFC East, 444-yard passing, 3 touchdowns against the Lions. The Lions play NFL football. I don't care who it was. The Cowboys are at their best when Dak Prescott is able to throw early and often. I know they love Ezekiel Elliott, but I'm telling you, something's up with Ezekiel Elliott. He's not the same. He's not healthy. That's my opinion. Your thoughts?
Well, ironically, Dak Prescott is the 3rd African-American quarterback to be a starter for the Dallas Cowboys. Reggie Collier was the first starting black quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys under Tom Landry. Quincy Carter was the second black starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys under Bill Parcells. Now Dak Prescott is the 3rd. And when you look at his exploits over the last 3 games that he's played, 1,100 yards passing, Charlton,
amazing. His
quarterback rating through the roof, he has been a winner. And the Dallas Cowboys have gone offensively as Dak Prescott has gone.
Yeah, they really have. And I know everything's big in Dallas. It's just bigger. Dallas, even the state of Texas, I think they're more big on football and who's bigger and stronger and faster down in Texas. So that quarterback position, it really means a lot more in Texas than it does in a lot of places, especially at the NFL level. Big C's top 10 quarterbacks coming up this week. Number 1, I thought this guy was supposed to be a defensive back, Big C, or at least a wide receiver or running back. the great Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, another perfect performance. The new frontrunner, MVP, my opinion. And once again, he did it in spectacular fashion. Now he's up to 3,046 yards, counting his contributions as a runner, 25 total touchdowns. Nobody in football is playing better than the most hated man at the start of the season. Even going back to last year when the great Joe Flacco was sent packing to Denver, people actually hated Lamar Jackson. They thought, oh my God, how could you get rid of a guy that took you to the Super Bowl for a guy who should play defensive back? He's made everybody get on the bandwagon. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's the most electrifying player in the NFL right now at that position. I mean, he's kind of captivated the scene in America as everybody wants to see what is Lamar Jackson doing next. He's been winning. He's been winning consistently. He has those 2 hiccups on his record this year against a couple of lackluster teams, well, one lackluster team in Cleveland and a team without defense in Kansas City. But as Lamar Jackson goes, that defense in Baltimore is even better. But this team right now is on a run.
I want to ask you this before in fact, we'll do it after the Big C timeout because I want to get your thoughts about what he's come from and, growing up and playing college ball in Louisville, that legacy of Muhammad Ali, I'm the greatest overcoming, and I think he really is overcoming the NFL. We'll take what's called the Big C timeout. We'll come back in just a moment. You're going to love joining us in the second half. All right, we are back after the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here. Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports Xfinity Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I'm told I talk fast. I like talking fast because I like to listen fast too, Big C. And I used to get in trouble so much as a little boy. I had to talk fast so I get out of trouble. At the same time, Lamar Jackson runs fast. Some people say he runs too fast, that he should slow down in the pocket and become a sitting duck and try to throw like a lot of flat-footed quarterbacks. I want to just get your thoughts on this moxie, some people call it swagger, that a lot of African-American men have. You can see it in dancing. Some people even say you see it in lovemaking. That's just my own opinion from what I hear from people. There's a culture that some people call over-sexualized, others call it rhythm. Look at the rhythm that Elvis Presley stole from the black community. When Elvis first started doing this thing on TV, they would not show him below the waist. A lot of black men, when they would dance, people would say, oh, we don't want to show that, it's too sexualized, or it's too aggressive, it's too dominant. Well, think about where Lamar Jackson's from. He was told no by everybody, but he grew up in the shadow of the greatest, at least when he played at Louisville, Muhammad Ali out of Louisville. And I want to get your thoughts, that mantra that Ali taught, I'm pretty, I'm the greatest, I can't ever be beat. He defied the government. He didn't want to go off to war and kill people that did nothing wrong to him. And there's a moxie that a lot of black men have when they succeed. Sometimes it scares people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I look at Lamar Jackson's upbringing and I look at the special bond he has with his mother was his coach growing up. She's also been his quarterback coach his entire life. She's his agent. So when you have that parental guidance in your life of a parent helping you take control of your life through that maturation process, Charlton, and helping you develop and keeping you on the straight and narrow, I think that's the biggest mantra that Lamar Jackson has, is that you don't run with the wrong crowd and expect the right things to turn out. And that's what the parenting in his life took care of.
Yeah, I love that moxie. The city of Baltimore, I know POTUS had some horrible things about the city of Baltimore, and I know the late Elijah Cummings was a strong advocate for the city of Baltimore and the Maryland region. And there's something about, even going back to the days when they lost football, the Baltimore Colts left, and they left in the middle of the night. That city has had to be resilient. They have to go against all odds in thinking that they would never, ever have NFL football again. I think they have the Stallions back in the USFL back in the day. But to have this team come back and to see, I think, the best quarterback in football go against the current of the media, against the current of the NFL prodigal quarterback that look, my own opinion, they would love to have a white guy be called the NFL MVP at quarterback because they built that mantra up, even though it's false. They built it up over the years. That's why it was hard for black men to get the job as quarterback, Big C. That's just my opinion. Do you think any of that helps them push harder, or is it just everything's even now? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, when you get an opportunity to play, regardless of the sport, you plan to excel. I've never seen an athlete walk into an arena and say, I'm not as good as everybody else, and I don't think that I can compete.
Right.
This is the nature of athleticism, is that you strive to be the best, regardless of what position that you play.
I think he's going to be amazing. I just wish him nothing but the best. So that's Big C's top 10 quarterbacks. We have our own opinion. And, of course, everybody has their own flavor of Kool-Aid. I want to get in, and I know we're going to do a lot of this on Friday, Big C's college football thoughts, but just some big games in college football this weekend coming up and how it's really shaping. It's like a puzzle coming together. The best way you put together a puzzle is you look at the picture of what it looks like when it's completed. But when you don't have the completed picture, you kind of have to feel your way through. And right now, a big game. I don't think they can get in to college football Final Four is Penn State. They're ranked number 8 in the country. But they're at number 2 Ohio State, and they want to complete that puzzle. Ohio State's already completed it. They beat Oregon in their first, college football Final Four. They did it a couple of years ago. They've seen that puzzle. Will they get back to putting that puzzle together again, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they have to beat Penn State this week. They can't afford to slip up. Penn State is fighting for their college football playoff life.
Does Ohio State, as a Southern guy, I know you're Southern media biased. I know you think that the SEC plays better football than the West Coast, and that's okay. Paul Feinbaum thinks the same. A lot of you good boys think that way. But when you look at Ohio State, and they're playing a team that's ranked number 8 in the country, I know LSU knocked off Alabama. They were, in the top 2 or 3, depending on what polls. Is it still a valuable? No, Ohio State's not going to fall, period, if they run the table. But is beating a Penn State team that lost to Minnesota on the road, that eventually lost to Iowa on the road, is that still a sexy win for Ohio State, even making an argument for being number 1, Big C? Your thoughts?
Oh, it would be a dominant win for Ohio State. This is a team that's been in one of the top teams in the country all year. It's a coin flip between Ohio State and LSU, truly who is the best team in the country. But to have a top 10 victory on your resume would be well for Ohio State.
It certainly doesn't hurt anybody. Now, we play to win the game, and I know Oregon doesn't want to hear that. If you think about it, duck tastes better when you roast it on an oven over a nice oven, Big C. They don't want to get roasted down in Arizona. Down in Tempe, I know this Arizona State used to be the little engine that could. When they were in the WAC conference back in the day, they joined the Pac-10, and they actually had the chance to win a Pac-10 championship. At the time, went to the Rose Bowl. Jake Plummer was the quarterback. I remember that. That was back in '96, Big C. But prior to that, they had played for a national championship. In the polls-wise, they didn't let them play. I think they were tied with Florida State back in the day. But this Oregon team comes in. This is a team that's trying to say, look, give us one more chance. They have this quarterback in Herbert that was hyped as a Heisman Trophy candidate. I think he fumbled the ball away down in Texas against Auburn. They were down inside the red zone. He fumbled a pitch, and Auburn ran down inside the 5-yard line, and the game changed going into the second half. That's just my opinion. Oregon was without 4 wide receivers, so they're still a great team. If they have any hope of getting into that Final Four, they cannot fall at Arizona State. Big C, your thoughts?
I question whether Oregon could get into the Final Four, period, Charlton. Even if they run the table, they will not beat a team with more than 8 wins on the season.
That is incredible news, and that's a very good stat. But, Big C, sometimes we don't like stats. Can't you just be emotional? Don't you want to see some of those ducks running around? I know you like ducks. Don't you want to see some ducks running around for the college football championship? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it all takes care of its place, on the field. If you go out and win out, then you don't have to find excuses to say, well, we should be in as a one-loss team.
That's very well said. I still think And this West Coast thinking, because we got to think it. Auburn's going to knock off Alabama because they don't have Tua, and it's going to show up. And then Georgia's going to fall to LSU. There'll be a way for that door to open from the West Coast, Big C. And number 7, Utah. If there's a team that's going to get beaten this week in the top 10, it would be a team in Utah that's going to play a team in Arizona. I know they were blown out by Oregon 34-7, but that was on the road. This team was a little bit different at home. I'm not saying the upset's going to happen. I'm saying if. It would not be surprising to see them good boys down in the desert pull the upset. Utah doesn't play as well on the road, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have Utah and Oregon trying to bundle up, Charlton, to play against each other in the Pac-12 championship game. Regardless of what happens throughout the rest of the season in the Pac-12, one of those teams eventually will eliminate the other one, Charlton.
Yeah, and I think Oregon's going to win out. I also think because California, as well as Arizona, is so close to Las Vegas, the prop bet and the Pac-12 media and all those officials that they complain about when they go down south, Big C, there'll be some home cooking for the Utah Utes coming in. That's just my opinion. Down south, and I knew it has to have you shaking in your boots, because you Southern boys don't like guys from Texas. But Texas A&M, they were telling everybody all season long, I think Kellen Mond's his name, that we're the best team. We're going to compete for a championship. Well, they have a chance to knock off a team that's going to be in that championship game. Texas A&M, with all the great talent of Texas, going into Georgia to play number 4 Georgia. The Bulldogs, to me, I know everybody loves them. Their defense, they're not a high-scoring team. This is a team, if you can get 30 on the board, you might beat them. Texas did it last year in the Sugar Bowl. They have another big program from Texas. I don't know if it's going to be an upset because there's too much Southern cooking, but give me your feeling on Texas A&M playing at Georgia, Big C. Your thoughts?
Georgia is an outstanding team. Their Achilles heel happens to be their quarterback, Jacob Fromm. He's up and down as a quarterback. He only completed 50% of his passes in that last victory that they have, Charlton. He's going to have to throw at a 65-70% clip to beat Texas A&M in this game.
Well, that would be an amazing thing. I know officiating will come into a lot of what happens. Texas Christian University, TCU, they're at number 9, Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to be aiming for maybe one of those Cotton Bowl wins down there that they had Texas playing last year. I don't think there's any way they get into the Final Four unless a lot of teams just fall off the wagon like Boomer Schooner did earlier this year. Any hopes from TCU? Oklahoma's living precariously. They barely got by them good boys at Baylor, and they can't keep doing that because eventually it catches up to you like it did when they played Kansas State. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they suffered the loss to Kansas State. They squeaked by against Iowa State in the last minute. They squeaked by against Baylor in the last minute. TCU is one of those teams who knows how to knock off the big boys. Barnett down there as the coach, he does a tremendous job of getting his team ready. Oklahoma can't afford a slip up this weekend.
Yeah, I look forward to them. I mean, they like to play from behind. Doesn't make any sense, but they do. So that's Big C's thoughts on some top college football games coming up this week. I'm pulling for the West Coast. I love duck with my wine, Big C. I know you good boys like steak with your moonshine, but we'll see who celebrates that this year. Big C's top 5 college passing leaders. And you got to look at some of the numbers. We haven't even played 10 games, Big C. Number 5, Caleb Baker out of Troy. Good boy has 3,169 yards. He can really spin it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the state of college football now. It used to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Now it's all air raid offense.
It's all the air raid. Number 4, Shane Boucher out of SMU, 3,195 yards. I remember SMU, they played, I believe, down in the Fiesta Bowl, or it could have been the Holiday Bowl, but they lost to BYU. I think it was 45-44, one of the better college football games that I'd seen. It's good to see SMU at least making some noise in college football again, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Shane Buechele, he's a transfer out of the University of Texas. He wasn't good enough to stay there. Tom Herman said he wanted to go a different direction with Sam Ehlinger, and he's the number 4 passing yardage guy in college football this year, Charlie.
Yeah, he can pick it up and lay it down. And SMU used to get the best talent in Texas back in the days of the Pony Express. I know that's changed, but they're on the upswing definitely. Number 3, Brock Purdy, Iowa State, 3,203 yards. The Cyclones are a team, I like to see them just keep their same colors. Quit trying to be like Oregon. Sometimes I don't know who I'm watching. They were all black at times. even though they're mostly burgundy and gold. Big C, your thoughts?
And you think about the Big 12 and all the great quarterbacks that have played there over time, and the leading passer in that conference comes out of Iowa State, Brock Purdy.
Yep, and he throws where it's cold. It's not warm up in Iowa. It's cold, but he has a lot of heat on the passes, Big C. Number 2, Joe Burrow, LSU, good old boy from Ohio, found his way down south, Big C. 3,687 yards, and he could have more. This is a team, I like his moxie. I mean, Edgerrin has it rolling down there for them Tigers, and there are times when you think they're going to run the ball to run the clock, and he'll pull it up and pass it 15, 20 yards. I like his moxie, Big C. Your thoughts?
Who would have ever thought that you'd see a quarterback out of the SEC, especially out of LSU, averaging 360 yards a game passing and being a Heisman front runner?
Yeah, he's really doing his thing. And then you think of Mike Leach. Yeah, he gives horrible interviews. He's just a horrible interviewer at times, but he's a very smart man, cerebral man. Anthony Gordon, Washington State, 4,314 yards, and you would think they'd be in the top tier of the Pac-12, but when you throw the ball so much, you're not running the ball and letting your defense stay off the field. I mean, they throw a lot, but they don't win as much as we thought they would. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, there's a common theme, Charlton, with 3 of these top 5 quarterbacks. You look at Shane Buechele, you look at Joe Burrow, and you look at Anthony Gordon. All of these kids could not make it at the original university that they started at, so they all had to transfer and find a home. And you look at moving on and finding a no home, and you see where they are. They're ranked in the top 5 passers in the country.
Yep.
Anthony Gordon is lights out this year, averaging over 400 yards a game passing, leading the nation.
I remember going back to the days of the Pac-10. I think it was Mark Rippon that played quarterback for Washington State. And I used to always think when I would see that stadium, why are they even in the Pac-10? I think the Pac-8 at that time. And ironically, how a lot of stadiums in the Pac-12, at least 50,000 seats outside of, I think Washington State has 35,000, and I think Oregon State has 45,000. Everybody else is above 50,000. But that's a team, no matter how small their stadium is, they've had some of the better quarterbacks to play on the West Coast. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to go all the way back to Jack Thompson throwing Samoan back in the 70s, Charlton, leading the Pac-8 in passing before being a first-round draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. You talk about Mark Rippon came out of there. We talked about a quarterback that was with Ryan Leaf, came out of Washington State also, Charlton. They've had a wealth. Tim Rosenbaugh was a first-round draft pick in the Arizona Cardinals. They've had a wealth of quarterbacks that have come out of the Palousas up there.
And you think of Gardner Minshew also. He's doing his thing for Jacksonville when he gets the chance to play. So those are Big C's thoughts on some of the top performers in college football. Now, in order to have a good passing game, you got to keep your DBs honest. And when you run the ball, you keep them honest. Big C's college football top 5 rushing leaders. And I'm thinking number 5 is Jaret Patterson. That good a boy can play, but no one knows who he is. At Buffalo, he has 1,328 yards. Big C, your thoughts?
And Buffalo was on TV last night, Charlton, with him running up and down the field. And that's what you need in inclement weather up in the Northeast when it gets cold and the snow is on the ground. A running game, and Buffalo has that.
Yeah, they've been able to have that. Another player that I really think he stirs the Kool-Aid for Clemson. We put him at number 4, Travis Etienne from the Clemson Tigers. 1,335 yards. Even though they're a team that has a dominant passing game, you cannot worry about the passing game all the time because he's a guy that can get you 200 yards in a game. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Travis Etienne, should be higher on the statistical list this year in college football. But I've seen him play in 3 different games, Charlton, where he didn't have more than 12 carries in the game, and he still has over 1,300 yards rushing on the season.
Yeah, he's going to run his way right into the NFL, Big C. Number 3, A.J. Dillon, Boston College. He's a stud, 1,451 yards. Boston College is not a good team. Imagine if he was one of those running backs that you have down at Clemson, if he had that kind of offensive line, imagine what he would do. Even Boston College, not that good, but 1,451 yards, he's really a workhorse. Big C, your thoughts?
Been one of the more dominant runners in college football over the last 2 seasons, Charlton. He's consistently been in that 1,500-yard range. He's going to get there again this year. Just a dominant athlete in the Big East.
The running back that I thought would set the world on fire, and maybe he still will, And when they came out and they blew out South Florida, actually shut them out. They shut out quite a few teams. And then they took a couple of losses when they fell at Illinois. But number 2, Big C's top 5 running backs is Jonathan Taylor. Might be the best in the country for Wisconsin. 1,463 yards. He has such balance. He never really seems to be running out of balance. You can hit him, and all he does is give you the hip and take it away. He's very hard to bring down. He's a lot faster than he looks too. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's one of those complete backs, Charlton, and when all defenses are scheming themselves for you, he's still picking up the yardage. Jonathan Taylor has been a super running back in Wisconsin for the last 3 years.
Reminds me a lot of Ron Dane, a little bit faster though, Big C. Number 1, Chuba Hubbard. What a name. This guy should sell. He should have a fast food restaurant, Chuba Hubbard, Big C. Oklahoma State, 1,726 yards. He's going to crack 2,000. They may take in the bowl game, but he's going to be a 2,000-yard runner this year. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about all the top recruit high school players across the U.S., Chuba Hubbard is from Canada, a Canadian leading all U.S. colleges in yards on the ground in college football.
Maybe he's just trying to get back home, Big C, but running north and south will help him. Definitely one of the top college running backs I've seen in many, many moons. So that's Big C's top 5 leading rushers in college football. I want to just take this right back to the NFL. We talk about north-south runners, and we were talking about the quarterbacks and how dominant they are. And we talked about Lamar Jackson, a lot of African-American players being told, well, you can't make it, and you're not smart enough, you're not cerebral enough. We don't know if he has the mental fortitude for it, so let's make him a defensive back, running back, or wide receiver. But I want people to Google something. For the first time in NFL history, the 5 front-runners for the MVP race, which stands for Most Valuable Players for you good old boys, after 11 weeks, Big C, they're all guys, for the most part, that were told, you're not smart enough to play quarterback. You're not smart enough to be the team leader. We don't want you to be the face of our franchise. In fact, you might be better off if you tried out as a running back or a defensive back or receiver. It has happened to a lot of African Americans that were not given that fair shot. It's not just Colin Kaepernick, Big C, for his own reasons, but some of those reasons prevented some teams from winning in the past because race mattered so much. They didn't know their grandparents and ancestors came from Africa, but they discriminated against guys who looked like the African features. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. For the first time in NFL history, the 5 front runners for the MVP, they're all black, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they're all black, Charlton, and all their teams have winning records. You know, it's ironic how the landscape and the complexion of the NFL has changed in the last decade. Is now teams are seeking out African-American quarterbacks, Charlton, not thinking of them as a gimmick, but they're looking at them for as pure team leadership and the ability to win. We've seen a slow matriculation over the past 2 decades of African-American quarterbacks in the NFL, but now you have your top 5 MVP contenders being African-American quarterbacks, Charlton, and you can even throw in Michael Thomas, the wide receiver down there at New Orleans, and put him in 6th place.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And there's something called pressure that sometimes men are taught that you don't belong. I mean, think about it. Through busing, through slavery, through Jim Crow, through busing, civil rights, Plessy versus Ferguson, banks that do redlining. We know the foreclosure crisis. Banks intentionally foreclose on black homeowners. I work in the industry. I know that. It's happened to a lot of people. There's always been something nefarious that people of color have to go through. And that's why, by the grace of God, people keep climbing. I always love wagging that tail. Big C, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And the apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow us on Xfinity, Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. NBA basketball. It's a slight schedule tonight. Not a lot of teams playing. You have Portland at Milwaukee and New Orleans at Phoenix. But I want to get your thoughts on something. In the NBA, on a Thursday night, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 11 for 6. Monday night, 42 points, 12 assists, 11 rebounds. In the first quarter last night, 22 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. And finished with 35 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, only 25 minutes. Big C, I guess it is a worldwide sport. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you had brought this individual up last night, and you said you didn't think that he was the best European player of all time. That's just his last 3 games. Luka Doncic, Dallas Mavericks. And the last night, what he did to take apart the Golden State Warriors, he outperformed the Golden State Warriors by himself in the first quarter. When you just told his statistics, those were more points, assists, and rebounds than the Golden State Warriors had in the first quarter last night in their loss down in Dallas. You think about the greatness of Luka Doncic, Charlton, and he's had 14 triple-doubles on this short season already in the NBA. This kid at 15 years old was Rookie of the Year in the European League. Think about it, 15 years old playing against grown men. He was Rookie of the Year. Last year, he was Rookie of the Year in the NBA. Right now, he's in the top 3 as far as the MVP hunt in this early season in the NBA. This is one outstanding player.
Yeah, he's outstanding. And when you think about how outstanding he is, when you think about the players that are considered the best in the league, obviously Giannis, he's up at 30 points a game, 31 points a game. And then Beal out of Washington scoring 30. Doncic is coming in right about number 4 at 29 points a game. Lillard's averaging 28. Harden is amazing, and he's going to probably be the scoring leader again. But it says a lot about the European players that can come to the United States, and oftentimes people may say, well, they don't have the game. He's not an athletic athlete. He's just someone that can shoot the ball very well. And I don't want to be cliché and say he reminds me of Larry Bird, that he doesn't look flashy, doesn't look athletic, but he's very solid. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you're getting a triple-double almost every night in the NBA, I don't know how that game doesn't translate. Just because you're not a Zion Williams highlight reel, which we have not seen play in the NBA yet, which player would you really have? I mean, if you talk to personnel people in the NBA, if you take Zion Williams, you take Luka Doncic, right now it's hand down Luka Doncic. And I don't know why the Atlanta Hawks traded him last year for Trae Young. I guess they wanted a shooter. But this kid came in. You think about it, twice in your life, and you're not even 21 years old, and you've been the Rookie of the Year in 2 leagues. At 15 years old in Europe, in 19 in the NBA, you have the brightest of futures ahead of you.
Yeah, it really is. I wish him the best. Let's see what happens when he gets to the playoffs. I still like Dirk Nowitzki and Manu Ginobili, but I've seen them play for many, many years. I want to finish with a thought, Big C, on the West Coast. L.A. basketball, when the Lakers are in town, it's must-see basketball. But when the Clippers are in town, and they got over on Boston last night, it's also must-see basketball to see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And the thing about Leonard, that good boy blocked a shot that may have had the chance to have them lose last night, but he did not give up on defense. He's really an all-around player. So people might criticize him about load management, but I love basketball in L.A. It really seemed like the Mecca again. And I want to pay homage as we close out the day on Big C Sports. I know it may give you heartburn, you good old boys down south, but in college basketball, the top 10, Big C's top 10, the number 1 team in the country, they're Ducks, Big C. They're the University of Oregon Ducks, followed by number 2 Baylor, number 3 Stanford the Cardinal. That's also a bird, even though their mascot is a tree. UConn's number 4. Oregon State, that's a beaver. They're number 5. So of the top 5 women's basketball team in the country, 3 are from the Pac-12, followed by number 6 South Carolina, number 7 Texas A&M, number 8 Mississippi State, number 9 Louisville, number 11 Maryland, and I will even throw in UCLA at number 11. I think behind every, and I've heard this many times, and people always say behind every good man there's a good woman. I think behind every good woman there's a good man. Maybe Oregon football can follow the Ducks girls basketball team. Big C, your thoughts?
So what you're saying, the best athletes on the West Coast all wear dresses, Charlton?
Nothing wrong with that.
But the basketball players are much better than the football players. I mean, it's a sport we don't see a lot on television, girls basketball, Charlton, and we see a lot of men's football. So, as you say, maybe if they put on some pom-poms and dresses, the football team would live up to the basketball team's expectations.
They wear the kilts over across the pond, Big C. They might do it. You know, Oregon's known for wearing different uniforms. Maybe they'll come out with some skirts planned, and it'll shock everybody in the college football universe. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charleston, we're looking for supremacy tonight in the NFL South, where we have the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. This is a must-win game for both of these teams. As you think about the Colts, they've won the last three contests against the Texans.
Yeah.
And if this game comes down to a field goal, you don't want it to be for the Colts because Adam Vinatieri is the worst kicker in pro football right now. He's already missed 11 kicks on the season in just 10 games.
Yeah, he's just about 19 years too late. Look at the Tuck Rule, Big C. But you don't have to be late every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911 because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.